Alright, boys and girls, welcome back to episode 298 or whatever it is of this way too early 2025 AFL trade series thing. Again, we've got some good news to talk about today, some actual surprising news that has kind of came out of nowhere as of late. Again, one of the first things I wanted to talk about was a recent report that actually has come out by Tom Morris saying that Sam Flanders is a big watch for the back half of the season. He's emerged as a trade target for Victorian clubs who believe they could turn his head with more midfield time and big cash. Contracted until 2027, the Suns' position is he's not up for trade, but this won't stop rivals exploring a play for him. Again, I don't think Gold Coast are going to move on from him. I have talked about this in a different video, of course, actually talking about Richmond being interested again. In saying that Gold Coast, I don't think will move on from him and trade him, that's not stopping the fact that, in my opinion, I think a lot of clubs will, of course, actually try and trade for him and actually offer up some big money again. I think he's actually, in my opinion, he's one of the players that if he was to request a trade from the Gold Coast Suns, I actually don't think the Gold Coast Suns have to trade him. Again, you've got a lot of scenarios where players get traded because they're not happy with the club, or, you know, they're requesting a trade, basically forcing the club's hand to, of course, move them on. But if Sam Flanders was to go and request a trade to a different team, let's just say like Richmond, in my opinion, the only reason he would be requesting a trade is because he would not only get a little bit more midfield time there, but he'd also get quite a bit more money, which Gold Coast can just say, look, you're happy here, you're also contracted for a year, we're not going to trade you, because if we get a future first round pick or something like that in return, that's not going to help our cause at all, because we want to win now, and we're going to keep you, and then by the time your contract's up, we might even offer you a deal that's going to be like as good as what Richmond are offering you. So yeah, I don't think he will get traded, but there will be clubs who are interested in him. Again, I think a big team, maybe like Essendon, will look at him. I think St Kilda, who have looked at basically everyone and their dad, will look at him. Geelong, who have an infinite salary cap glitch, will probably look at him. Again, I think Richmond will very heavily look at him. But at the end of the day, I don't think there is too much more to this story. I think Sam Flanders will most likely be staying a Gold Coast Sun for at least another year. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but the deals are probably going to intensify, I think, as this off-season does go along. Again, another report here says that I do think clubs like Melbourne, Brisbane, and others, not all of them, will reconsider this pursuing Jamar at the end of the year. Hutchie on Jamar, Ugle, Hagen. Again, that is a really interesting call, because we heard a month or so ago that kind of every club nearly in the AFL was really cool on Jamar, and none of them were really actively going out there to get Jamar, Ugle, Hagen. Again, there was a report a little bit ago that also said that Jamar was telling people close to him that he would like to play for the Sydney Swans. Again, do the Sydney Swans want him? I'm not too sure. But basically, at the end of the day, I think Hutchie is, he's kind of cooking here, because Jamar has come back to the Dogs and he's reportedly apologized for the off-field actions, which we don't really know the full extent of what has happened there. They're keeping that very under wraps and very quiet, which is very funny and interesting. But it's also like Jamar, him coming back to the club and actually going and playing VFL eventually, is what they're saying, does take a lot of guts, and that's a big move. And if he can play VFL and, you know, maybe he returns to the VFL in like 3 weeks or something and sees out the year in there, plays like the last 8 games or whatever in the VFL, gets some form back, gets some fitness back, there's no reason why other clubs won't re-show their interest in him. Now, Brisbane, I don't think make any sense for Jamar, Ugle, Hagen, especially considering they're reportedly getting Oscar Allen. I wouldn't go down there if I was them. Sydney kind of need a key forward. I think they'll look at him. I think one that's really interesting to me does happen to be Collingwood. I think with Collingwood's continuous ability to re-top up their list with players, in my opinion, it makes a lot of sense for them to go out and look for him, especially considering they desperately need a key forward, you know, with Dan McStay getting older, of course, Mason Cox isn't even really playing at the moment. Tim Membry they've picked up really late. Who knows how long he's got left. Again, I think they really need a young key forward to carry them on for the future, and I think Jamar would make a ton of sense. I think Geelong have to look at him. Saints will look at him. I think West Coast will look at him. There'll be a ton of teams that will look at him. Pretty much everyone and their dad will look at him, but who will be interested is the real question, because only one team might be interested. And the reality is that we, as fans, don't know the full extent of what has gone on with Jamar in the off-season and away from the team. But it's bad enough for teams not to obviously want him. I don't really know. I'm guessing he's getting back in the swing now of things now, which is really, really good. And I mean, yeah, we're gonna see what Jamar is going to be able to do, and I'm excited, and I hope the best for Jamar, and I hope eventually, he will get back right on track, and teams will very much start looking at him. So that's an interesting report by Hutchie right there. Of course, there's still a couple other things that we got to talk about right now. Again, one here that actually says that Nsiah Wang Miller, he's shut down a lot of rumors that he has problems with Tex. Again, Caroline Wilson reported that Nsiah Wang Miller didn't want to go to the Adelaide Crows because of some racist comments that Tex made a couple of years ago. Now, I think that story is completely blown out of proportion, because that is another story where we don't know the true, report and the true, I think kind of every information about it, because Tex, I think, was suspended for quite a bit for making some racist comments on the field. Again, that actually stirred a little bit of controversy in the AFL community, because there was a lot of belief online that Tex was actually getting a lot of really bad comments to him, and then he snapped and then said something. So that was a big issue that happened back then. We're not going to really talk about that, but the thing is, that was a long time ago right now, and I refuse to believe that a grown man would have a very big problem with, another grown man saying something like 4 to 5 years ago that seemed to be a one-time thing, that seemed to be a bit of an accident. Again, I don't think a grown-ass man like Nsiah Wang Miller would be having a problem like that, and it doesn't seem like he does. It doesn't seem like he's not going to go to Adelaide because Tex, made an accident 5 years ago, right? He shut down these rumors. There's reports saying he gave a call to Tex. It is being said that my understanding is that Nsiah Wang Miller has initiated that conversation, has rung Tex and said, "I want you to hear from me categorically that there is absolutely no issue with you, with me, and with the potential decision moving forward." So this is really interesting, because this completely opens the door up for Nsiah Wang Miller to maybe still go to the Adelaide Crows. Again, Port Adelaide are very interested, and St Kilda are extremely interested. And I mean, we're getting to the point now where St Kilda, they're probably going to have to table an offer that looks like an offer that Keziah Pickett just re-signed with Melbourne. Again, he just re-signed with Melbourne on, I think it was 9 years, $1.2 to $1.4 million a year, which is absolutely insane. That could be the type of deal that, Nsiah is, of course, looking at. And I think Adelaide would look at that too. Port Adelaide would definitely look at it. These clubs are all going to be very interested. But I am glad here. I mean, when I heard Caroline Wilson say that, I remember thinking, yeah, Tex made a mistake. I mean, said something on the field he probably shouldn't have said. Was he getting shit thrown at him too? We don't really know. And again, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, a grown-ass man, I just wouldn't think would be mad at another man for an accident that happened 5 years ago or whatever, and it shouldn't stop him from maybe accepting a freaking 9-year, $9 million plus deal from this team. Again, just because some guy said a bad word 5 years ago doesn't mean you're not going to go to a team for 9 years over $9 million freaking dollars. Could you imagine turning down $9 million because some guy made a mistake 5 years ago? No, not going to happen. I'm glad that was put to rest, and that is going to be the dumbest thing I have ever heard, right? So stupid. Again, another report here does say that Melbourne is keeping tabs on Giants forward Callum Brown, who remains out of contract beyond 2025. 24 years old, 188 centimeters, kicks a goal every game. Again, I think Callum Brown is a really underrated player. Could the Melbourne Demons get him? I mean, the Giants have been penning people to really big deals, like a guy like Finn Callahan reportedly signed for a big deal. There's a couple other guys that have signed for previous big deals. We know Toby Green, Lockie Whitfield are all on big numbers, etc., etc. If a team like Melbourne, who is starting to try and free up some salary cap and is doing a couple different things, could a team like them come forward to him? Again, I'm not sure. With them re-signing Cozzy to a $1.4 million per year deal, it makes me a little bit, less to think that, do they have this much amount of money? Because I think they've got $4 million players now. Petrarca's on like 1.5. Oliver's nearly on 1.5. Pickett's going to be nearly on 1.5. Gawn's on like 1.1, I think. I'd imagine May and Lever are still on pretty sizable deals. I think even Harrison Petty, who's not really that good, is getting paid all right as well, because Adelaide came calling a couple years ago. Again, I don't know if they have the money yet, but there's rumors they're going to be moving on from Oliver and Petrarca. Are they going to? Probably not. I think they keep at least one of them at this point. I mean, those rumors have kind of died down. It's going to be interesting, but I think a guy like Callum Brown will command at least slightly above the average. And a team like the Giants, will they be able to match it? Will Melbourne be able to put a deal forward? And, I'm going to be interested to see how that one plays out for sure. Again, I'd very much like to hear all of your thoughts and opinions on this week's way too early 2025 AFL trade updates and news and whatnot. Don't forget to comment what you guys think about all of it. Leave a like on the video to let me know you enjoyed it as well. Subscribe to the channel for all latest sports content and sports news, AFL content, all of the above. And don't forget, subscribe to my gaming/movie channel, which will be linked down below. Even give me a follow on Instagram. All of them will be linked down below. But yeah, as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.